And off we go. Hello, how are you doing, Ashley?
Hey Steph, doing great. How are you?
I'm good. They're destroying a building across the road from me, and every so often my entire block of flats just like shakes. And I didn't realize what it was for a while. And I was like, why does everything keep vibrating? Is there something going on? And then realized that there was construction work. So I'm hoping that I've closed all the windows and now it's just a hot box in my flat. So I'm hoping that no noise will come through.
Oh, that's awesome. I kicked the dogs out, so I think we'll be good.
Oh no! Oh, I feel bad for the dogs. We had like I think a few seasons ago we just had dogs on constantly, and I was just jealous that everyone kept bringing their dogs on. No, I want a dog.
I
All
can't
right,
believe I'm going to
let's
see you in person next week, though. I'm really, really
yes,
excited about it. It's been like,
let's
well,
bring up.
I guess it's about a couple months now, but before that, a couple years.
Yeah, I mean we'll go into this, but we met like years ago at CloudyCon, where we were both presenting, and then yeah, we saw each other at the FinOps Roadshow, is it in London? And then we're going to FinOps X. I mean, I'm flying out on Saturday, going to Austin, Texas. Can't wait. Maybe next week I'll wear a Stetson if I get one on the show. And you'll have to forgive me if you're watching next week, which I hope you are. I will have just gotten off the plane, so bear with me that day. And if the episode isn't on for some reason, it's probably because I've been delayed because I have the worst luck when it comes to flights. So that will hopefully that won't happen. But yeah, exciting for next week.
Me as well. Yeah, it's going to be a hot one, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I think we
Yeah,
have over 400 different practitioners coming on site and just nice to get back in person again. I think we all miss that a lot.
yeah, definitely. There's going to be some. I'm excited. Like even though I'm speaking, I'm like, oh, I'm speaking, but I'm like looking at the schedule, like, oh, what this? And I was just like ticking all the boxes, and I was like, oh no, that's the same time as mine. Damn it! And I had to go and I do it. But yeah, I'm excited. But yeah, let's get into the show. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Stephanie Gooch, and I am a commercial architect at AWS. And today we're going to be talking about Ashley's journey into FinOps, but also about FinOps adoption on like a broader scale. So if you are new into the world of FinOps and getting into it, then this will be a great episode for you. Throughout, please throw questions at us. We want to hear from you. Anything about cost optimization, FinOps, what you have for breakfast, like whatever's going on, just send us a comments in the chat. And also you can catch us on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see any past episodes, then you can go on there. And or if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And any questions you post underneath that will also get answered. All right. Okay, there's my sales pitch for the episode. Ashley, do you want to do your kind of 1 minute origin story?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Ashley Hromatko. I'm the director of operations at the FinOps Foundation. I've really been involved with FinOps for the last 4 years. And I, was a manager at a large education company. If you take your AWS certification, you might take that on that company's platform. And I really was on a journey to figure out how to manage my AWS spend. And I kind of stumbled along the FinOps Foundation about 3.5 years ago and found this community of people who were doing similar things like Steph, and just became really intrigued with the idea and built a team. And then about a couple months ago, I decided to officially join that foundation and figure out how we can continue to scale what we're doing globally.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, actually being part of the foundation is it's grown. It's such a massive thing. And I'll pop a link in now in case anybody's interested. And as always, if you're watching on YouTube, all the links are down below. But yeah, the FinOps org, I mean, we can't sell it enough that we love the org. And it is such a useful way to learn and build a community. And there's so many different sub parts of it. I love all the working groups and stuff now. That's always just like so exciting to see what people are developing. But yeah, it's super cool. I've still got the origin story. But yeah, do you want to talk a little bit more about how you got into FinOps?
Yeah, good question. So, I had really had more of a background in like data analyst, and so my first couple roles were really out of school doing that, and I was really intrigued with trying to automate things. I
Mm-hmm.
noticed where I'd worked at, a lot of the tasks were very manually. We were moving a lot of paper, and so I just really fell in love with automation to start with. I ended up wearing a few different hats. So I ended up being a scrum master at one point. I was a product owner, building out a tool. And then about 8 years ago, I decided to switch kind of gears, and I really started to fall in love with the technical side of things. And so I started
Mm-hmm.
becoming a technical project manager. and I landed within an infrastructure team. And to be honest, I knew nothing about the cloud when I got this job. And so I just started asking every engineer a lot of questions, and I became a sponge, and I would go sit with people and be like, show me, what an EC2 is. What is it actually doing? And they would draw it out on a napkin or whatever they had available. And so I just wanted to learn more about, technology. Oddly enough, the second day that I started this role, my manager had said, here's the AWS bill. You need to do this thing. And I was like, okay, we're not spending much at this point. Seems relatively easy to put it in a spreadsheet. We got to a point, eventually where we couldn't access the current and Excel anymore, right? And so as our spend was growing, really my interest really peaked in this area as well. Like, how can we allocate this more efficiently? How can we make strategic pricing decisions? And so I just really started reading a lot of literature and trying to try different things and see what was going to work. And then really in 2018, I think I read an article about FinOps, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. That's what I want to do. And I was
That's
like,
a name
could
for it.
that be
Yeah.
a thing that I build a team around? And so that's what I asked to do. And I was really lucky that I had an executive sponsor that was like, here's some resources, go try it out, fail fast. And so it was really good kind of career move for me because it allowed me to, have my newly technical cloud background skill set. And also I had an MBA, so I had a, pretty good macro business background, but I also still get to be in the weeds and look at data, which is what I find, most interesting. So I ended
Yeah.
up running this FinOps team at this big education company. I was there for about 4 years, and we really went from that crawl to running very quickly. Again, having the right resources paid off for us. I ended up having the biggest team at one point. It was 11 different staff. It ranged
Oh,
from
wow.
engineers, BI developers. I had program managers, mostly analysts that were working directly with the engineering teams. And then a couple months ago, I decided to make another career shift, coming out of COVID a little bit. And I'd always been volunteering with the FinOps Foundation, extremely passionate about what they're doing as a community. And so I switched gears over here, and instead of building my own practice at my enterprise, I'm now able to help other people do that. And so that's been
Yeah.
really interesting. I'm getting to see how what I did for best practices, what other people are doing for best practices. How do we standardize that? How do we get more literature out there? And what I find is, like, people who are like me, they felt like they were alone trying to solve this problem, and now we can bring this community to do it. So it's a really feel good job that I'm in right now.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. It must be a thing when I say old enough in the industry, but this sounds like making everyone sound really old, but like that you've mentioned, Alex mentioned, and I've mentioned, the day that I really remember seeing the Amazon bill for the first time on a piece of paper, like it being a thing. And no one had given it to me. It was actually just like on someone's desk. They'd left it. And I was like, oh, what's that? And they're like, that's the bill. And we were spending a lot. And I was like, oh my God, is this how much we spend? And they were like, and then that's that moment where you're like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what all the money's going on. And it starts to like open up for people. But now, and we'll probably get into data, that there are FinOps jobs now. I think you say this a lot, that's very different to how a lot of us got into the industry. Is we kind of muddled through and we're like, oh, FinOps, yeah, that sounds good. Whereas now it's like, oh, I want to work in FinOps. I mean, there's a grad at one of my customers who is working in the FinOps team, and like this is her first role. And I'm just like, oh, that's so exciting that you're like in the FinOps team and it's like your first job. It's very cool.
I don't know if you remember this, but I remember, like, teachers used to tell me, like, you'll probably have a job that doesn't exist 5 years from now. I'm like, that seems weird. And I'm like, wait, I do have a job that didn't exist 5 years ago.
Oh my
So
God,
it's very
yeah.
interesting.
That's so funny, so random. So there was something we mentioned before when we were chatting a little bit before we started the episode. When you first started doing the FinOps work, I remember you saying that there was kind of your FinOps practice, but there were also people working on like a similar area around cost optimization. Was it FinOps practice versus cost optimization? Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to admit, I was in the siloed IT group that everyone talks about. And we were very agile, and we were migrating from the cloud very quickly. And so when I was in that siloed business unit, we decided we were going to build a FinOps practice. And so we heavily focused on education, getting cost visibility to the engineering teams, and we wanted to aggressively tackle chargeback versus just previously doing kind of show back. And so we hired dedicated staff, and we embedded them into the SRE teams. And so that was happening in my siloed organization. There was also, on the other hand, our centralized IT, they had spun up a cost optimization program. This was supposed to be, I believe, a 1-year stunt. They had kind of brought some resources together. They weren't dedicated resources. It was kind of a collection of individuals that would, meet a couple times a week and, focus on efforts. And they were heavily working on what I would say cost optimization part of FinOps. And so they
Right.
were reducing waste, cleaning things up, doing massive reservation coverages.
Mm-hmm.
What I will say is both groups during that 1.5 year time frame were very successful at reducing spend. Absolutely. But eventually that program goes away. Those resources go back to
Right.
their full-time jobs. And
Mm-hmm.
then you start to see that waste come back up again, right? Because you didn't
Mm-hmm.
change the mindset of the engineers. You didn't get them the tooling out there to see their cost in real time. And so that was something that was kind of a weird experiment that we went through. And
Yeah.
so via some reorgs, I ended up moving to have a dedicated centralized team that what we did is cover all the business units. And so we really got some of that economies of scale, but we were still going to be full-time, dedicated, implement this as a long-term practice. And so what I wanted to do when I did that was still not lose like the integrity of being very integrated with the SRE teams. Well, at the same time, what I also realized is like moving centrally, it opened up these new connections where like, hey, I need to work with software asset management. I need to work with procurement more. I need to work with global finance. And so it was kind of interesting coming bottom up and meeting somebody top down and figuring out how to like merge that together. And so for
Yeah.
me, it was just kind of, I kind of use this example of like, if you're a person that's constantly getting headaches, right? And you can take some ibuprofen and then tomorrow the headache's back, right? FinOps is really a practice. It's not a prescription. It's not something you should try to like throw some resources at or throw a tool at and kind of walk away because you haven't really fixed the underlying issue that's again causing
Yeah.
that headache. And so that was kind of a big, I don't know, eye opener for me going through that
Mm-hmm.
experience.
I feel like I'm going to steal this as like a use case story now because this is really cool. This like you said, it's like an experiment that you had the two kind of options, and I think, like you said, that they both were successful in the fact that you do need to when it comes to let's take idle EBS volumes as like a hypothetical. Like getting rid of the volumes is a task to do, and it will save you money. But big thing that I always strive for is like, okay, so you don't want to have to go do this again in a month. So what automation are you putting in place? Like you said, what education are you doing? And is there a bug in a customer of mine had a bug where they were actually like spinning up EC2s and then like somehow the EBS volumes were coming unattached. And even though they did like a big clean off, they went and found the problem and fixed it. If they hadn't, next month it would have been exactly the same. But yeah, the
Exactly.
culture stuff I think is that you like very much specified it. And also you can see you've been doing this a long time. She also said like showing the developers the data if they don't know it's happening, because especially when it comes to, if you obviously we're talking about Amazon, you think about that EBS page, it can go on for pages and pages, but you're never going to look through all of it. You're just going to be like, oh yeah, there's the volume I'm working on. It doesn't matter if there's 20 pages of unattached ones going forward, you can't see it. But okay, so we've got a couple of questions, so we might take a little bit of a turn and then we'll come back to kind of our chat. But here we go. So what would you say what would you say are the requirements for a job in FinOps? So I guess what kind of skill set you would need.
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I was a hiring manager and looking for people, I actually really loved bringing somebody in entry level because this is such a new field. I 100% believe it's teachable, but I did look like for one of about two of three backgrounds. You hardly ever got all three. You'd be a unicorn. But do you have some fundamental cloud background? And you can get that by taking some of the cloud provider certifications. Do you have some business savvy background? You are most likely going to be talking with CTOs, CIOs, VPs. Are you going to be comfortable in those type of conversations? And then the other thing I would say is, are you interested in getting into the weeds with the data? Because you have to spend a lot of time, looking at trends and why things are happening and identifying those spikes. So for me, it was always business, data analytics, and cloud. And again, it was rare to find all three. And I think all three are teachable.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Thank you. Hopefully that answered your question there. And thank you always, guys. Questions, feel free to chuck them in around what we're talking about or anything. So we'll go on to this one. Do you have a FinOps tagging strategy? Oh, I mean, we could talk. There's a whole to put it in. There's a whole other episode on tagging. We're probably going to do another one because tagging is a massive conversation. But we've only got 15 minutes left, so we can't go super detailed. But what would you say a kind of a tagging strategy conversation?
Yeah, I'll go over this really quickly. It's funny. It's making me think back to how many times our engineers disliked when we would change that strategy. So don't do that. That's probably my first tip. Don't keep changing it on them. But we were really lucky that we created a really good AWS account structure. We had prod, non-prod, and sandbox accounts. And so people built the applications within those. That took care of 80% of the problem, I would say, because we knew that that account was dedicated to the application, charge it back to where that cost center needs to go to. We obviously wanted to know things like what type of environment it was. So that was an additional tag we overlaid. And then I think one of the best things we did is we tagged applications with an ID and then kept all the other metadata in like a CMDB. And that's because we didn't want to have to constantly rechange values on VP names or, if the organization business title changed. So we kept a lot of that metadata outside and used an application tag. And I see that very popular that people are doing.
Yeah,
but we have a really great white paper on that, and I can send it to staff where people have shared their best practices too.
Yeah. If you don't do it now, then I'll put it on the video after. But if you come to my talk at FinOps X, you'll hear me talk about this strategy of having an account, and you can use this lab below if you have got an Amazon account strategy, like Ashley said, that everything within the account kind of belongs to something. This lab will help you get that data out and connect it to your cost and usage report pretty easily. But this idea of using an ID is something somewhat newer that I've heard recently that I think is great, because it does it just do it all off somewhere else. And it doesn't matter if you use, you can use a CSV, but it doesn't matter if you use a database internally or in the cloud or whatever's best fit that you already have, or take advantage of a tool that you already have. I think that's really clever. So that's probably a really good tip for sure. There's a question. I'll highlight the question. We don't have to answer it. Do you have a different FinOps best practices for federal government cloud deployment?
I also have a white paper on that, so I will get the link to that. Yes, we've had a really amazing working group working on this federal government, how to adopt FinOps. I think they've spent 8 weeks or so on it, and they've published a white paper on. If you go to finops.org, it is available. It'll say projects, and it will say government on the side. So check that out. One does exist, and we have a working group and that's actively contributing to that. So it's a great place to join.
I'm so glad I asked, because I do not have anything for that. I do not work in GovCloud. So just there's a link to the finops.org. Have a look in there if Ashley has it to hand. But otherwise, we'll get it and put it on the show notes for this episode after. Well, that's great that there's a working group for that. So yeah, if you are new and want to join the FinOps Foundation, join that working group and learn more. There's another. Oh, here we go. So continuation of the question on. Oh, here's the GovCloud. Let me just put that in the chat so anybody can get it now. Yeah, check this link out if you are interested. There we go. Ooh, come back. There we go. If you are interested in GovCloud, I feel like I'm going to read that. That's cool to know. See, there's so much stuff about FinOps, but there's too much.
Makes me feel good when I say we have a paper about that, or we will make a paper about that.
So yeah, we've got following on from this. So I am an MBA with a certificate in business analytics, as well as a certificate SAA with about 7 years experience. What do you say my chances and options are? I would say you're good to go. Like, join the FinOps group and find the FinOps jobs channel and have your pick.
I agree. And I won't get sales pitchy, but there's a great FinOps certification, and it wouldn't take you very long to get through it. And it's a great addition to your resume. So.
Definitely keep us posted. I want to know how you're getting on. I've just realized I've got my sticker on here for like Twitch. I don't know if you can see that. So if you come see me at FinOps X, then I can come give you a sticker. All right, cool. So we kind of went off on a bit of a tangent, but I love it when that happens. So let's think about one of the things we talked about before as well was what type of activities we were talking about. So taking us back, let's go back to what we were chatting about. Hang on. Let's do a question. I'm loving the fact there's loads of questions today. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm good.
I think Ash, you're gonna have to come on for part 2 because we're getting swamped by questions, which is way more fun. So, can you explain your issues with having engineering right-sizing workloads? Major of the issues are over provision. So this is, I think, often we see that a provider will say that you're over provisioned. Have you seen this a lot, or had when you were working as a customer?
Yeah, I have. I mean, coming from where I was, this was a conversation we had regularly with engineers, and I found that there was a lot of, I don't know the words insecurity, but a lot of, I don't want to end up in the paper, so I've over provisioned this to prevent that. And so we had to really work a lot with them on like, well, can we performance test this? Okay, can you run this for like 3 weeks and see what volumes you're getting in, and then can we come back to it and make some decisions? And so I think, oftentimes when engineers are doing stuff, like they're again, they want to get it out there. They have deadlines they want to hit, and they've got features they want to get out, and not the provisioning thing the right size. While it is important, it's not always their top priority. And so that's one of the benefits, that you can always kind of come back and reevaluate stuff. We would often do that when a project was, being built out. They're building non-prod prod. We would leave them alone and say, build out, do what you need to do. The day that you go operational, we're going to come back and have some conversations and get you right sized and get you back on track. We would get them right sized, and then we'd come behind and buy reservations that were needed. And so, do we have the issue? Yes, we do. I think understanding the root cause of why you have that issue. Sometimes it's education. Sometimes it's just priorities that need to be done.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And it's a good question. We do provide a lot of the data. There's Trust Advisor, there's Compute Optimizer, there's right sizing recommendations. There's a lot out there. I think the good thing with the tools is that you can kind of, especially with Compute Optimizer, you can like try different scenarios and see stuff. But like Ashley said, going and trying it and giving yourself the ability to be flexible afterwards. I think once you get in production, like you said, get it spun up. But from what I've seen, a lot of development happens is people want to get stuff out the door. And once it's out the door, they close that door and they go to a different place. Like they don't care about what's happening. And that's why you get all these recommendations come up, because it looks like your entire estate is wrongly sized. That might not be the case. It might be that, yeah, you've got like a slightly over provisioned instance. But yeah, keeping that constant cycle of reviewing, and like we said earlier, get people the data so they can see what they're utilizing, and then they can go and action that and make it a common thing that you're not just reviewed on whether you have highly available servers or that your kind of application is running, but how cost efficient is that? So when you do your like monthly business reviews, that should be a tab on that Excel sheet or in that dashboard where you look at that. And also, if you're using infrastructure as code, it should be pretty simple to go from like a 2x large to an X large. So it's really pushing developers to use the cloud for what it is intended to do. And sometimes when you are in a rush, that doesn't seem like the most priority, but it will help you go when you kind of move forward with it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Oh, another FinOps X question. Love it. Will sessions from FinOps X be recorded and available on website, YouTube, or Twitch?
Yeah, so the keynotes are going to be live streamed. So I'll
sweet.
put that link in there too, so you can check the keynotes. The breakouts will be published on our FinOps YouTube channel within the next couple days following the conference.
Great, perfect. I wasn't sure on that, but that's exciting because I had to do my own recording for the summit, which you can check out on YouTube if you're interested.
Yeah, if I haven't told you, Steph, you're being recorded.
Yeah, I did. Probably you did tell me, and because I just didn't look at the messages. Classic me. I am really organized, I promise, guys. I'm here every week. So going back to what we were chatting about earlier, so this like what you were doing when you first started developing your FinOps team. We've kind of spoken a little bit about it. We talked about tagging already. We talked about education. What do you think really helped you move from that crawl to run, which is like a common saying in this kind of world? How do you think you got that kind of ability to move quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I can again go back to executive support. I can't like underline how important that was. I had leadership that understood what FinOps was, and I did a lot of teaching of that as well. But they prioritize cloud financial management. That looking at your cloud costs was important to the organization. It was a responsibility of an engineer. It was no longer something that could be ignored. So that was really helpful. They also invested, right? They invested in the resources that I needed. They invested in the team, invested in the tooling. And I think the biggest thing is gave me the freedom to fail. There were activities that we did that was not well received. And we had to realize we had put 6 weeks in developing this, automatically cleaning up resources just to find out that nobody wanted that. So that was really nice to have that freedom to fail, I think. I think the other thing, we really hit on education. I came from an education company, right? So education was important.
Yeah.
And we were one of the first organizations, I think external organizations at AWS, to do a FinHack. And that was really amazing to kind of bring in AWS EAs and help us train the teams and help us have conversations with the SRE teams. I think the other thing was the way that we worked. We were very agile and we were really embedded into what the SRE teams were doing. So if they worked in 2-week sprints, we worked in those sprints, right? And so what I had to do is make sure as my team, as managing this team, we could always manage the 3 type of activities we had. We had ad hoc requests, that was like anomaly alerts that fired up. We had BAU work, like we had to do the bill every month. That wasn't avoidable. And then we always constantly made room for planned initiatives. And I think that's what moved us from crawl to run, is we would say, we want to build this new dashboard capability in 5 weeks. We want to automate this type of budgeting system in 4 weeks, right? And so as a manager, you always have to balance that work. And I think that really helped a lot. I think the other thing is we were forced to scale. We closed rapid data centers very, very fast. And so, again, I couldn't open the curve file anymore, right? And so because we were forced to scale, I had to rely heavily on automation. We built a really cool, AWS data lake that processed the build, brought in our data from our CMDB, combined all of our business metadata. I mean, I was talking, we had over 800 plus accounts, 2,000 applications. So had to move fast because the business was moving fast in the cloud.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I like the breaking down of the teamwork. I think that's a great way of putting it. BAU, like you're right, every month you need to do a bill, the anomaly stuff, but also planning out work to do. And then like you said, you're a Scrum Master, I used to do sprints when I used to manage our FinOps team. And I think it's also interesting because if you're constantly just caring about the bill, or you're constantly just like people are just getting alerts and you're like putting out fires, it becomes very stressful. And it also could be like a bit boring. And so dedicating time to prevent those fires from happening or automating the bill so it's even faster process is a great thing. And the FinOps, Rob just put in there, shout out to April FinHacks. FinHacks are awesome. I'm doing my first FinHack with one of my customers next month. I'm a little nervous, but I'm very excited about it. So April has been a great help. And there's a Twitch episode we did all about the FinHack. So if you're out there and thinking, what's a FinHack, and want to learn more, go check that out, or see if you can get involved with one at Amazon.
Yeah, they're absolutely amazing.
I wish I'd done one as a customer, but I'm looking forward to being like on the other side for it. So I wanted to touch on the job stuff with you a little bit, because we mentioned that at the start, people asking us about what the key things are for jobs. But when you're kind of, and this is coming out a lot more, we were talking about it at the FinOps Roadshow. When you're thinking about FinOps jobs, kind of like you've already said what you look for in a person, but what other advice or things there to know about the roles available at the moment for FinOps?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you mind if I share a little bit of slide stuff?
Yeah, sure.
I can.
If you can.
If I can.
Well, I've got them.
Gotcha. All right, we got it.
This is where you can tell. Good?
You see that all right, Seth? Perfect. Okay, so this is really interesting. We've really seen a big ramp up, especially in 2022, of people talking about FinOps and jobs that are being posted. So within our Slack community, we have a jobs channel, and I swear every day I get up there and there's like 3 or 4 new jobs posted, right? And so it's been really interesting that we've seen this big, really this really big leap in this area. And I think what's happening, we're starting to see inflation in the economy. Businesses are starting to really lean into, we need to do more cost savings. Where's a great place to do that? Cloud. And so I think now that we're starting to see this rapid increase of both posts, articles, FinOps positions, and people are like, we're going to invest in net new headcount for FinOps because that is going to give us our return on investment to reduce our cloud spend. So that's been really exciting for us to see. I think the other thing is the state of FinOps survey data. I can show you that for a minute here. We surveyed, I think this was back in January, over 1,000 participants took this survey, and we asked them, like, what is the size of your team based on where you self-identify as maturity, and how many folks do you think that you'll need 12 months from now? And I think both of these numbers are really interesting. So what we do see is as you mature, you actually need more resources to help on your FinOps team. And I saw that as well. When I wanted to build out new capabilities, I needed new skill sets. Like I said, I needed maybe a BI developer at one point, needed someone that could deal with big data. And so that is very interesting that as you are maturing, you are needing more FinOps staff. I think the number that's almost even shocking is the fact that in 12 months, a team that's in crawl says they need 6 more. They need their headcount to double. Someone that's in run is also looking for the headcount to double. And me going back to where I started in 2018, it was me and one other person. And in 4 years, we ended with 11 people on the team. So I can relate to say, like, this is actually what's happening out there. So that's really exciting for me as well. I think the other thing that people really enjoyed seeing is we did survey about salary. Like, is this a good, financial career role to go in for an individual? And I think what we're seeing is that it's both highly in demand and it's being competitively compensated as well. And so again, that should be very exciting for folks that are interested in this field and looking.
Yeah, check out the jobs on there.
I think the other
I
thing
just want to.
from
Oh,
yeah,
go on.
go
Actually,
ahead.
finish. I was going to say we've got a quick question, but you finish first, and then
I
we're.
was like, another thing for me, like on a personal level, about 1.8 to 2 million women left the workforce during this pandemic. And I think a lot of time women are struggling to break into tech fields. We see that about 37% of entry level tech fields are females, and that even drops lower when you get into tech management roles. And so I think what excites me about this is it's a great way for individuals with different backgrounds, whether you're in finance, you're in project management, or you're just completely starting out of college, like you and I talked about, to get into this. And I hope that continues to boost more female that are able to get into this field and get closer to technology. From the FinOps Foundation standpoint, we've really tried to help with training and upskilling. We've offered scholarships, and we're working on a new mentorship program to help kind of really fill this supply and demand issue that we're seeing.
So much to look forward to. Well, we've got to stop there. We're out of time. Thank you so much, Ashley. It's been a great conversation. We'll have to have you back on for a part 2. If you're at FinOps X, come say hi to us. And next week, we were talking about how to take advantage of the free tier in Amazon. Have a good week, guys. We'll see you all later.
See you next